2026. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
As per usual, this is a hybrid meeting. It is being recorded. It will be available on MCTV. First order of business are the minutes from May 6th. Did you receive any
I did
edits?
not receive any edits on those.
Anyone want to add anything now? Okay, I move to accept the May 6th, 2026 minutes as written. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, first hearing, 695 Ocean Street. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, public hearing will be held by the Town of Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, to consider the request for determination for 695 Ocean Street, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Lake.
Thanks, Craig. Mike, have all the administrative requirements been met?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
And I think I see the applicant on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, do you want to go ahead and present your project?
Sure. I didn't realize I had to present it. What I'm looking to do is put a 6-foot wooden fence along that area. It's about 13 panels, and then a fence on the back side of the property as well.
Are you just seeking a one-for-one replacement of what's presently there?
And next to it, that fence doesn't belong to me. I'm not doing anything alongside the wetlands, so if you're looking at that picture, the way I see it, it would be the fence to the right, in between the two properties, and then the fence in the back.
Okay. And what type of fence are you proposing?
Wooden.
Mike, do you have any comments?
Yes, my understanding that essentially it would be a one-for-one. It would be built essentially in this style here, as noted by the homeowner. The property owner, to the right of them on this picture, owns that fence. They're building essentially a section of fence that they own adjacent to that fence, bordering the property in. But to my understanding, it's going to be a 6-foot wood stockade fence as seen in the site visit pictures. Is that accurate, Ms. Dunlop?
It's hard for me to explain. So have you seen the wood panels on the front of the property? I don't know if you went to view it. It'd be the same wood. So it'd be, I don't know how wide the panels are. Maybe, I don't know how to explain that. Is there a way for you to view the front?
No.
Are you the person, is the person that was there that viewed it available?
Yeah, I viewed it. There was like how tall would you say that front fence is? Like,
It's about 6 feet.
so about 6 feet, and the planks are more of like a timber plank than in a typical picket fence.
Yeah,
So
I guess I just don't know the language. I didn't know how to be prepared for that. Yeah, so whatever that is, I want it to look like that fence, since I'm paying for this in full myself.
What, in this area, is there certain spacing that's required, Mike?
yeah, this is within a barrier beach coastal dune. Typically with fences built in this area, they're built with adequate spacing on the bottom and between pickets to allow for the flowage of floodwaters, which is something the commission typically permits with a 1-inch gap between pickets or planks or whatever you'd like to call them, and then 6 inches between the lowest horizontal member of that fence and the ground.
Is that something you're amenable to?
I guess so, if you could send me that information.
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, if it's comparable to the other fences, that's fine too.
Any commissioners have any comment?
Just with the height of this fence, would that require a flood zone permit? Mike?
It is possible. I would suggest reaching out to the building department to obtain any pertinent building or zoning department permits as well.
Are you talking to me? Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
So I already had filled out the paperwork for building, so you're saying I need to follow up with them?
Yeah, just check and make sure there's no further permitting needed. As part of our permitting conditions, there'll be language in there to obtain all pertinent permits. So that
Gotcha.
would be some of the pertinent permits for you to obtain.
Okay, because I thought I read in the town information, as long as it's below 7 feet, that was fine. So I
That-
thought doing
That
six.
that could very well be accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know myself.
It's just on your website, and I did speak to someone in your office about that, just confirming that, because 6 feet seems to be standard. And if it was below 6 feet, then I'd be looking at that horrible broken fence that's falling apart next to me. So,
Yeah, we just have to make sure that there's a gap under it to allow flowage of water.
okay, is that something that they should be doing on their property as well?
I was just gonna say, she's putting a fence right next to this.
Next to another fence
Yeah.
that goes to the ground.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't
But their fence is faulty and it's deteriorating. They also have dogs on the other side on one of the properties where they might come through the fence. It's just concerning. Like their fence, what I have a feeling what they're gonna do is rip down the fence once I put up the fence, because their fence next to me has 4 broken posts already that are cracked at the bottom. So I assume they're just gonna take over my land that they're gonna gain and take down the fence. Because we've been in negotiations for over 2 years. And at this point, they don't feel like moving forward. I'm trying to do it safe, so I think they'll just probably take it down themselves at some point. They just don't want to pay for it.
Well, while it may seem sort of silly to make her put a gap, if there's a solid fence behind it, that's what we require. And if they're gonna take theirs down, then
Yeah.
we're where we should
Yeah.
be.
We can only do what's in front of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those are the requirements, so.
So
Yeah.
that means the dogs on the other side of the fence could come under the, like, there's a safety factor.
How big are the dogs?
They're all different sizes. So my concern is safety. So like a 6-inch gap is concerning.
In the past, I know that the commission has been open to allowing like a mesh or like some sort of a chicken wire solution that attaches to the bottom of the fence and allows water to flow through, but not necessarily allowing a dog to get through that gap.
Okay, but you're saying if they did take their fence down, then I wouldn't need a 6-inch gap?
No, you need a 6-inch gap regardless.
So then why do all these other homes not have 6-inch gaps that are around me? And I'm just not-
Probably because those were built prior to the floodplain regulations that we have now.
So when were those put into place? How many years ago?
Since I've started, so like 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
4 or
about
5
then.
years ago, yeah.
Okay,
And that fence is clearly
Yeah,
older
and
than a
that,
decade.
well, it
Yeah.
predate, yeah, that fence predates any floodplain regulations that exist now.
gotcha. Yeah, it's just a big worry for me. There's, the property does get Airbnb in the summer. So if the dogs can get through on the other side, that's just concerning. I mean, I get stuck with the liability.
I would suggest that whoever is the company that's going to do the fencing, that you discuss with them how to leave a 6-inch gap that will still exclude dogs.
Okay.
there any public comment?
If you're talking to me, no. It's just a new wrench I wasn't aware of when I was talking to building or conservation, that this was another thing I have to figure out.
Okay,
So.
thank you, Ms. Dunlop. Other than, does anyone else in the audience or on Zoom have any comment? No? Mike, any special conditions?
Yes, ensure best management practices are followed before commencing work, obtain all pertinent permits, and to see myself or the agent for guidance for work beyond this approved scope of work. And also the language about the 6-inch gap and 1 inch between planks.
I'm going to move to close the hearing and issue a determination of applicability with a +5 and a -2. May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye. If you have further questions, please, contact the Conservation Office.
Okay.
And they can help clarify things if you need assistance.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, 560 Spring Street. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, to consider the request for determination of applicability filed for 560 Spring Street, and the hearing officer is John O'Donnell.
Thank you. Mike, are we all set with the administrative requirements?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, I met with Rick Verney the other day, and he said he was going to be at the hearing, and I don't see him here, and I don't see him online. I know it's a fairly straightforward project that he was proposing. He has a existing fire pit, and he wanted to clear some brush, which is pretty, do you have pictures of that, Mike?
Yeah. Which
is in that pink area. It's along the side of the driveway and leading to the fire pit. It appears to be beyond the 25-foot no-build setback, correct?
No, that's
No.
not correct. I'll pull up the site plan. I did,
I didn't,
let me pull it up.
I guess one of the issues we have
No,
here
it's,
is,
the area of work that he's proposing is between the 25-foot setback and the 50-foot setback. His no-build, no-touch zone is from the 0 to 25.
so he's
So
clear.
he's proposing work right along the edge of that no-build zone, but within an area where he
So
is permitted to build.
he is permitted to build, correct?
Yep.
Yep, that's right, I guess.
Let me just pull up the site plan for
Yeah,
it.
no, what you said is, I thought, correct.
Yep.
He's outside the 25.
Yeah, he's not within the
Yeah,
25-foot setback,
okay.
he's outside of the 25-foot setback.
Yeah. Now
So
the-
here is the wetland line here, that's 25, no build zone right in here, and then he's proposing to build within this 25 and 50-foot
We don't
setback.
have the plan up.
Like,
Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, he submitted a hand-drawn plan, which shows it beyond the 25.
So there's the wetland line here, and then there's this 25-foot no build zone.
Yep.
And then this area highlighted in here behind the structure is the proposed patio area.
Yep. And to build that, it's got to be permeable, either flagstone or pavers.
Yes, so he's suggesting, I believe it's a gravel base with a brick border, and then just some flagstone laid out intermittently as sort of stepping stones in the area.
Yep. So I guess what you discovered is that there are conservation markers along the side of the house, but as part of his original order of conditions back in 2017, 2018, there were supposed to be conservation markers along the back, right?
Yes, according to their orders of condition, for the development of that existing barn into a single-family home. They did have to place conservation markers every 25 feet along the 25-foot setback, which I didn't note out in the field, especially I was in this area behind the fire pit. I didn't note any.
Yeah.
So that will have to be done by the homeowner in order to receive your certificate of compliance for that scope of work.
Okay. But as far as our hearing goes for tonight, in terms of the patio and the clearing of the brush, do you have any issues with that?
I think it would be helpful to get those conservation markers on the 25-foot setback, especially in that area back there, around that fire pit and where they want to expand the patio. They are right up against that 25-foot no-build zone. I'm not exactly sure how the homeowner plans on scaling out that distance.
Okay.
But I'm sure that having some boundaries out there as sort of a boundary would be beneficial.
Yeah, because obviously, the way he has the patio drawn, they're going to be right up against it.
Exactly.
They're going to be right up against those 25-foot markers that aren't
Exactly.
there. Okay. All right, so given that's the case, and given the fact that Rick is not here or online, then how do you recommend we proceed?
The commission could choose to table this and see if Mr. Verney shows up at a later time during this public hearing. If he doesn't, they could, you could continue it until the June 17th public meeting to have that discussion with him. I do think that having that discussion as part of it with the homeowner would be beneficial, as the conditions on an RDA aren't necessarily binding. They're more for a cover letter,
Yeah.
special conditions, but they're not taken to the registry of deeds or what have you.
Okay, so I think we have a pretty busy evening tonight, so I think I might just go to continue it to the next meeting, make a motion to continue the hearing to the next meeting, and then we can talk to
Second.
Rick. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I have a second.
I was just messing around.
Yeah.
I was just messing around.
No, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Because there are other things we need to talk to him about. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Next up, 46 James Way, in compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection. A public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, to consider the notice of intent filed for 46 James Way, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Burt O'Donnell.
Okay, thank you. Mike, can you confirm all administrative requirements in that?
Yes, all administrative requirements have been met.
Okay, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Darren Grady. I'm with Grady Consulting, representing James Wozni, Joseph Wozni. The project before you tonight is a proposed ADU. It's on the rear left of the building if you're looking at it from the street. There's a bordering vegetated wetland in the rear left corner, and the proposed ADU is 74.4 feet away from the wetland. A silt sock is proposed as a limit of work. All of the area that this is being constructed on is lawn. No trees will be disturbed, either by access or by the construction of this. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Mike, could you explain what's going on with this one?
Yeah, so I did receive a call from Mr. Grady a few weeks ago, alerting me that there had been some sort of miscommunication and that ground had already broke on this project. Here I have captured my site visit photos. At the time, when I visited the site, they had all appropriate erosion control measures up. As you can see, they had a 12-inch diameter erosion control sock. The work itself was within are allowable by law, from my observations. And so I instructed the homeowner that he could proceed at his own risk, and that this would obviously go through permitting where the commission could ultimately put more conditions on it or what have you. But yes, from my observations, the erosion controls were in place and effective. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, as far as commissioners, I visited the site today. The work is substantially well along, but everything looks good. I'm not sure exactly where the glitch took place. How did the permit get?
So it came before the Conservation Commission, and as part of our normal review process, we take a look at GIS data and layers and everything. And from what we could see, the wetlands were estimated well off the property and well over 100 feet away. When Grady was doing the site plans and sent out the wetland scientists, it turns out that the wetland came closer than what was anticipated. So that's essentially how.
Okay, but it cleared through us, so they were issued a building permit.
They were issued a building permit. Conservation review did take place. That this was kind of a one-off where the wetland line was fairly radically different from what tools we use to review projects that initially come across our desk.
Okay, so as I said, I visited there today. All looks good to me. I don't know if any other commissioners visited. Any discussion from commissioners?
Nope.
See none. Any discussion from the public? Comments from the public? I see none. I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and issue conditions. Anything in particular, Mike? The silk socks are in place. Standard conditions?
Yeah, the standard conditions I'd suggest are general conditions 1 through 18 or standard special conditions. Prior to construction, condition 5 and 2, which wouldn't be relevant here, as I've already met with the homeowner and we've gone over the project on site. During construction, condition 11, ensure best management practices are followed. After construction, to file for a certificate of compliance and to ensure that erosion control is in place and effective throughout duration of work.
Okay, thank you. Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, if I give you a call tomorrow, can we coordinate the recording of the order of conditions?
Absolutely.
And we'll get this permit back in line.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell sees that Mr. Verney has arrived. We just continued that.
Yes.
Can we,
I'm not positive. The commission did vote to continue it to the 17th.
I've never had this happen, so
I'm not sure procedurally how to move forward from here to comfortably give you guidance. I think potentially you could vote to rescind that last vote. I'm not sure procedurally how that would work.
So I guess the question is, there was a reason we continued, and it wasn't because Rick wasn't here necessarily, it was because there was we needed to, there's some work that needed to
well,
be conducted.
I believe we wanted him to be present to
Yeah.
discuss
What work needed to be done.
what work
I
needed.
think we were probably continuing regardless, based on the conversation with the conservation markers and
Yeah.
such. So maybe Mike could reach out to the applicant
Okay.
and inform him of that, or? 'Cause I don't think, once a motion's made to.
Yeah, I don't want
I
to.
just, what I don't understand is he's sitting there, there's a reason why we continued, and he's there, so we should I don't know if I
Because
can tell him?
because it's an RDA and we can't firmly condition it. We want to make sure he's clear
If you'd like, I can step outside and speak to Mr. Bernie for a few moments.
Okay,
Well, that's what I was wondering if I could do,
Yeah.
but if you can do it.
yeah,
So,
we'll let Mike do it, and then, okay.
it's an unusual circumstance we have. I know you came from Walpole, so we had a long ride to get
Oh,
here.
no, he was
Yeah.
probably in traffic.
That's what
Okay.
I assumed happened, that's what I was wondering. Okay. Oh, Mike's there.
We'll go on to
Can't win.
6 Damon's Point Drive. In compliance with the regulations of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Code of the Town of Marshfield, Chapter 294, Wetlands Protection, a public hearing will be held by the Marshfield Conservation Commission on Wednesday, June 3rd, 2026, to consider the notice of intent filed for 6 Damon's Point Drive, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair Malafronte.
Thank you. So this project is in land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone. It's in the floodplain AE 12, and we have a representative from the applicant. I will note the meeting notes that Mike prepared for the commission indicates that DEP file number hasn't been issued. I'm not sure if that has happened since the issuance of these comments, but,
I wasn't aware of that, but I'll look into it.
and when he comes back in, we can double check with him. But you can take it and introduce the project.
Hi, my name is John Landy with Morse Engineering. I'm here representing the applicant, Suzanne Morin, seeking project approval for the NOI associated with septic system upgrade at 6 Damon's Point Drive. The existing site is approximately 46,500 square feet with a single-family, 3-bedroom home, currently serviced by leaching pits and failure. The lot has frontage on Damon's Point Drive to the south and is abutted by residential properties to the east and west and by Murdoch's Pond to the north. The subject resource areas in this project include the inland bank shown in blue, along with the 25, 50, 75, and 100-foot buffers. It is also located in the FEMA zone. I have AE 20 noted on the plan, and I believe that's from the front panel.
Okay. It could be a typo in our notes.
The property is also is currently serviced by 2 leaching pits and failure located in the rear of the home. The plan proposes new plastic septic tank, plastic pump chamber, distribution box, crushed stone leaching bed. The 2 tanks are proposed in the rear of the home to then pipe around the bed in the front. We're proposing a 12-inch mulch sock down gradient from the proposed berm for erosion control. The proposed septic is located further from the inland bank than the existing system, and I believe will be a great improvement to the site. At this time, I'd like to take any questions, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that summarizes it pretty well. The existing septic system is to the rear of the single-family home. They're proposing to have the leaching system in the front yard now, much further from the resource area. I was curious, that I noticed you guys did 4 test pits out there. The intent was, I would assume, at one, try the rear, and then the groundwater was relatively high? Okay. And then my only other comment I had, looking at the plans, I think that the upgrade is fine, and it's an improvement. I did notice there's a drain line that appears to exit the rear of the home, and it looks like it discharges kind of on the riprap slope at the edge of Murdoch's Pond.
So that drain line, we didn't actually field locate that. That's shown on the existing septic system as built.
Okay.
So I don't really have too much information on that, just that it's shown as
Okay. You don't know what the purpose of it is?
no.
Okay. Mike, what we were talking while you were out in the hallway, did a file number get issued for this? 6 Damon's Point?
Let me check.
In the meantime, do other commissioners have any questions or comments?
No.
Okay.
It's a betterment.
I don't see a DEP number has been issued for this project at this time.
Okay, so we're going to be continuing either way. I would like, if you guys could, potentially investigate what that drain line is. If we had like an illicit discharge there, where it's before the commission, I'd like that to be rectified. If it's simply like a roof leader or something of that sort, that's obviously completely acceptable, but. Any other commissioner comments? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, Mike, we will continue to the 17th.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion with the, without a DP file number, we cannot close the public hearing, so, and issue an order of conditions. So I'd like to make a motion to continue the 6 Damon's Point project to June 17th. Can I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 31 Island Street. This is a continued hearing, and we are waiting, I believe, really for a withdrawal, but we have received nothing formal. So
I make a decision.
I think, John, we have to continue
Well, we
until we have
have a formal
a,
withdrawal.
yeah,
All right, so make a motion to continue the hearing. Have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we'll continue to the 17th, and you've kept reaching out to them, right? So I don't know why
Yep.
they're ignoring you. Okay.
I mean, if they don't file a withdrawal, is there some point where we would just move to
To,
deny without prejudice?
yeah,
After, when would that be?
17th.
yeah, I mean, if we haven't had a response in the next 2 weeks, yeah.
I think also for the structure that they proposed originally, it would be fair to issue a positive determination of 1 and 5.
Right.
Meaning
And
that
then require
the
an
town
NOI.
bylaw and Wetland Protection Act would be relevant and that they need to file a notice of intent.
Yeah.
So we'll deal with that on the 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. 203 Standish Street, we'll just do this right now. SE 423180 for 203 Standish Street has requested continuation to the 17th. I move to grant that. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. 12 Careswell Street. It's a continued hearing, and the hearing officer is Vice Chair Malafronte.
Thank you. I would like to start, just to make the public aware, as well as other commissioners that might not have been there, but we did have a site walk on, or dock walk on last Friday, I believe, 5/22. And it was attended by the building commissioner, the harbor master, myself, Craig, Mike was there, Bert, and Liz.
Liz.
Yep. And no deliberation took place on that such site walk. There was some questions that were asked regarding location. The harbor master had probably the most questions out of anyone. But I'll turn it over to you guys and introduce yourselves and changes that have happened.
Sure. I'm Colin Bono of 12 Careswell Street. And I just did my best to address the concerns that you had from last meeting. So if you want me to just go down the list, I can do that. On your site plan that you have now, it's a little updated. One of the, particularly the area of the dredging, the dredged area, so it shows a little more detail, both on the site itself and the graphic down below. So that was one of the items that you wanted to see. A couple of the other items were fees. I know the riverfront area question came up, as well as the dredged area. And I consulted with Greg DeCesar to get some clarification on that. I think he's probably the most senior person over at Wetlands and DEP, and he said that the NOI that I filed was correct and that it shouldn't be updated or replaced. And he gave a bylaw or a mass law for the, or regulation rather, for the dredging to not appear in the fee structure, as long as it's associated, directly associated with the construction of a new dock, pier, or other structure. So that was, I know, Sam, that was your concern. So make sure I got that. There's a DEP file number that was assigned from the last meeting. So on your copies, it isn't on there, but I printed you out brand new copies if you want to see it. I know it's typically not, on there, but you suggested it might want to be on there, so it's on there if you want it to be on there. You wanted a site visit, which of course you mentioned happened on the 22nd, and I addressed a additional variance that was needed for the first of your performance standards, E1. It's got a couple parts to it, but the particular part that you were wondering about was no dock or pier shall extend further from the shore than a point equal to 1/2 the lot's water frontage measured as a straight line between the lot's waterfront corners. So to address that, the reason I'm requesting relief from the pier length requirement is that the unique conditions of this property make strict compliance impractical. The bylaw would limit the pier to approximately 25 feet based on my 50 feet of water frontage. A pier of that length would not accomplish its intended purpose because of the substantial salt marsh located between the upland and navigable water. Although the proposed pier measures approximately 138 feet from mean high water, that doesn't tell the whole story. Roughly half of the length is simply crossing the marsh. So once you reach the edge of the marsh, the pier extends only about 65 feet further to provide access to navigable water. The length is not being driven by a desire to build an unusually large pier. It is being driven by the natural conditions of the site and the need to span the marsh in order to reach the water. I would also note that there are several piers and docks in the immediate area with similar lengths. The proposal, therefore, is consistent with the existing character of the neighborhood and reflects the practical realities of waterfront access in this section of Green Harbor. I believe that the pier provides an environmental benefit when compared to the alternative. Construction of the pier involves a limited and temporary disturbance during the installation. Once complete, access occurs above the marsh and resource area. Without the pier, access to the water would require repeat foot traffic through the marsh over time, resulting in ongoing disturbance to vegetation, soils, and habitat. In my view, a one-time controlled construction activity represents less overall impact to the resource area than repeated crossings occurring year after year. My project has been reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the board did not identify any concerns with the location, dimensions, or overall layout of the structure. For those reasons, I believe granting a relief is appropriate and would allow reasonable use of the property while remaining consistent with the surrounding area. That addresses that. On the plan, you had asked to make some of the lines different colors or bold, so that would be a little bit easier to interpret. So I think we've done that. The materials, there was a question about where the materials would be stored. So on the plan, you can see on the driveway, there's a little area that says, material storage. Again, a more detailed view of the dredged area in those two spots. And then kind of addressed it, but the dredge material will just go to an off-site approved location, which has not been determined yet. And then the last piece that was a concern was the vegetation disturbance. And it's really 29.14 square foot area, which less than a 5.5 by 5.5. And I'm open to whatever you think is reasonable or, prudent. I'm willing to do that. And I think that addresses the concerns that you had last meeting.
Thank you.
Sure.
This morning, Harbor Master DeMayo issued a email, which I don't know if it was been forwarded to you guys.
No, not yet.
I'm sure Mike can do that after this meeting if he hasn't
Yeah.
done so already. But he had some research on various, his interpretation of various things.
Sure.
Regarding like 401 water quality cert.
Yeah.
The dredging of intertidal wetland zone.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Or intertidal zone, excuse me.
Yeah.
In various approvals. I think it's pertinent that you provide a response to these
Okay.
comments. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're being given to you.
Sure, yeah.
Right now. So I don't think right now would be the appropriate time to
Right.
do that.
You might want to read some of this into the record.
I can do that.
I would
So-
say maybe starting,
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, Harbor Master DeMayo issued a comment letter this morning at 11:55 via email to Mike and the commission. He explained that he attended the site walk on May 22nd. He said he feels as if there's a big disconnect in interpretation on the dredging above and below the mean high water and mean low waters. He said dredging can be done without a state-issued 401 water quality cert under 100 cubic yards. He agrees with that, but not in an intertidal zone. Dredging of an intertidal zone cannot be dredged without proper permits from DEP, Army Corps, EPA, MEPA, local approval, etc. This is the difference in dredging. One cannot arbitrarily dredge an intertidal zone that is a protected resource area, even if you dredged only 3 feet. You would still need an additional 2.5 feet, as the 3 feet would only get you to a minus substreet, which means the dock would be aground at low tide. This in itself would trigger a volume greater than 99 cubic yards. I think that's the gist of his comment letter. He thinks the Conservation Commission should reflect on this if we were to issue orders of conditions for the project. And he brought up again regarding the sediment sampling as well as the dredged materials. I think I skipped that one in the one of the top comments, but he brought that up at the site walk as well. So I would recommend that, well, I can open up to the commission and the public, but I'd recommend you
Sure.
submit a response
Yeah,
letter.
no, that's fine. I can address it, but I don't want to give you an incomplete response, so.
Yeah, but a response letter would be
Sure.
helpful, and then I'm sure, maybe if he could provide a response, as that's submitted, Mike, we could make sure the harbor master sees that and,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments? I guess at this point, we would be asking for if you.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any other concerns that I can write down in addition to these?
I don't. I think our
Address.
plan comments have been addressed.
Okay.
The only other follow-up I'd like to see from the harbor master is the location of the float, if that meets with his approval, if the dredging was permitted.
If we were to permit the dredging, if the
Yeah.
floats, yeah, because he didn't really address
Typically,
that.
that's what he looks at the most.
Yeah, and I think that was a question he asked at the site walk,
Right,
was
yeah.
regarding the float direction. Yeah, Mike, if you could reach out or
Absolutely.
have the.
I think it was just parallel versus perpendicular, which I don't think was a big sticking point
Yeah.
for anyone. I think it makes most sense down there.
Yeah, I think your response of the orientation of the float made sense, to me at least, but I agree, I think having his opinion on it would
On
be.
the phone today too, I did speak with DeMayo briefly on the phone, Harbor Master DeMayo, that is. And the distance between, I scaled it out in my office, the distance between this proposed float and the dock is about 35 feet, which is larger than the dock, the distance between the two docks here to enter the area. But I did mention that to the harbor master, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't create a choke point, I think is what I get from that.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments that they can address?
You want?
Not,
No?
not at this time.
Okay.
Could I make a few comments?
Absolutely.
Good evening, I'm Freeman Boynton from Duxbury Construction. I quickly read through the harbor master's comments, and it kind of appears to me as though he's suggesting we get all the necessary permits, but I think in order to do that, we have to get your approval on the project first, and then we can apply to all these requirements, certainly, do the sediment sampling and apply to all the other agencies that he's recommending, but
I'd agree with your,
can't get off for first base unless we get your approval first. I think.
yeah, I think the volume of dredging is something that he has a couple comments regarding. And I think that's something that probably needs to be looked at to ensure.
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I tried to ask him on the site visit, but the volume, I think I said it was 88.7 or 88.9, and we
Yep.
just rounded up just to have a margin of error. But that's calculated from the single beam bathymetric survey that he recommended. So if it's an issue of, if we think that's accurate, those are accurate numbers,
No,
calculations.
I understand that. Mike, has he seen this plan also? Because this obviously.
He was the first one to have this plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
As it sits, yeah.
I think I would lean on I agree with what you're saying. If there's additional permits needed, that's going to be a condition of approval for us. And I don't think that's the intent of what I'm getting at.
And the water quality survey, that's one of the ones he addresses. The order of conditions that you give includes dredging, acts as in place of the water quality survey. And that's from DEP, Waterways.
You're saying the water quality certificate?
Certificate, sorry, yes.
Because it's under 100 yards is what you're.
You got it, correct.
So I guess his comment is not in an intertidal zone.
And I did confirm that with DEP, that they're, and that's an Army Corps. It's up to them how much of it, because some of it does lie above and some of it does lie below. And it's up to them to make a comment on that, but that's after it goes through them.
Yeah, if you have correspondence from DEP, I think a simple response letter
Okay.
with that
Sure.
information, I think would probably
Yeah, I just want to get you.
close all
Helpful
of
to
it out,
see that.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not in disagreement with anything
Yeah,
you're saying.
no, of course, yeah.
And I agree, like, if there's additional permits, you guys will obtain them
Yep. Yeah,
before
you
this.
put that in the order of conditions that will obtain
Right.
all permits if necessary.
That's how I would lean on this. I think a continuance with cleaning this response up and additional correspondence is probably the clean way to path forward.
Okay, yeah, I just want to get you something that you can digest easily. You know?
Yeah.
I don't want to bombard you with.
Mike, does that seem reasonable?
It seems reasonable.
Okay. So if you're open to a continuance to the June 17th, I think if you guys could pull that letter together
Definitely.
in the correspondence, I think we could go from there at that.
Okay. All right.
So with that, I'll make a motion for, to continue this hearing, the 12 Careswell Street project to June 17th. Can I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
These, it's the same thing basically, and just a written variance request.
Yeah, I would like.
You can use them as a copy holder.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
No, we have this anyway. What he read. I don't, at least. You can have that one. Or Mike, do you want this just for everyone's file next?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Next week? What do you want to do?
Yeah, we should probably take them and you can
Mike.
distribute them
Okay.
from the office so
That sounds
that
good.
we don't get lost in the shuffle
Scanner
here.
is also broken for site plans right now. so
Okay.
This makes it a bit easier.
Okay, next up is 121 Grandview Avenue. This is a continued hearing, and the hearing officer is Commissioner Miles.
evening.
Good evening.
Let's see, we are going to be hearing new information from you tonight.
Thank you. If I may, Commissioner Miles?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky, as you know, a local environmental and land use lawyer, and I represent Craig and Sheila Garland. Mr. Garland is with me at the table, and Ms. Garland is behind me. And Paul Seberg, our project manager, with Grady, is attending remotely. We were last before you on April 15th and agreed to provide additional information. It's taken us a little time to gather that together, but we're here this evening to present that information in support of our request for a waiver of Chapter 505, 304, 1E1, which is your regulation which requires a pier to not extend further than 1/2 the lot's water frontage. And just to remind you, in order to obtain a waiver, we must show that the proposed work will not have any significant adverse or cumulative adverse effect on any of the wetland values under the Marshfield Wetlands Protective Bylaw. And Grady Consulting has rendered its professional opinion that, in fact, what we're proposing is not going to have any significant adverse or cumulative adverse effect, and we've satisfied our burden of proof to obtain that relief. On April 15th, one of the commissioners, I believe it was Vice Chairman Malafronte, requested additional information to demonstrate that this is an unusual case. I just want to be clear, that language appears in the preamble to Section 505-106-18 of your regulations, but is actually not the legal standard for the grant of a waiver. However, it is clear in this instance that this is an unusual case. I believe that several commissioners visited the site this week and observed the conditions. Paul submitted additional information on May 4th, 2026, which demonstrates that the geographic location is rare and unusual, and due to these circumstances, it's not feasible to construct a dock without a waiver. I remind the commission that I previously submitted documents reflecting that this commission has in fact granted this same waiver for other projects, and suggest that the regulations must be applied uniformly. I have reviewed the harbor master's comments, and in fact, have had several conversations with him regarding this project, and as you know, he does not favor this project. I just would like to note, and we discussed this a little bit on the 15th, that the harbor master's principal concern is the fear that the dock will be used for a motorized vessel in the future. Again, this is designed as a swim dock. The dock is not designed for use by motorized vessels, and we agreed at the last public hearing to a special condition which would prohibit the use of motorized vessels. Obviously, the harbor master is concerned that if a vessel was tied up there or was accessing the dock at the inappropriate time, that there's risk of scour of the substrate, which no one wants. I just want to make the point that fear of a future enforcement violation is not a proper ground for the denial of an order of conditions. If the Garlands or any subsequent owner of this property does not comply with the order of conditions and any special condition which would prohibit the use of motorized vessels, they would be then subject to enforcement. And the cases are clear. Prospective violation of a town bylaw is not a legally tenable ground for denial of any application. That's Fafford versus Conservation Commission of Reading, 41 Mass Appeals Court, 565. It's a 1996 case and is black letter law. I do note in reviewing the harbor master's comments, he made a comment that somehow that we'd be subverting or avoiding Chapter 91 requirements. This project is going to need additional permits, and I'll be corrected by Paul, but including a Chapter 91 license. I mean, there's nothing to avoid. You have a standard condition in the state orders, but it's typically repeated in your orders. That requires any applicant to obtain any and all necessary permits before constructing the project. So I have great respect for Harbor Master DeMeo. I understand his concern. It's a concern, but it's not a legally cognizable concern that would prohibit the Conservation Commission from granting an order approving the project. So with that, I'm going to ask Paul to explain the detailed information that he provided to you with respect to the unique circumstances here. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Paul Seberg from Grady Consulting. Mike, would you be able to go to Exhibit A that we provided? Or no, I can pull it up on my screen if that's easier.
Yeah, I'll let you pull it up on your screen. Let me just share. Actually, it doesn't look like I have that ability anymore. Let me pull up that document. Is this the letter, Paul?
This is the letter, but not the actual plans associated with it. I can email those to you if you need them.
We have them.
I believe the commission has them. What's the date
Yeah,
on
we
those
have them.
plans?
It's Exhibit A, right?
It's May 21st.
I thought I did too.
Oh, okay, it's Exhibit B.
Oh, there you go. Yep, those look like them. Perfect. Thank you, Mike.
No problem.
So as Adam mentioned, since our last hearing, we submitted additional information in support of our variance request. As stated in Chapter 505 Marshfield Wetlands Protection Regulations, variances are intended to be granted in rare and unusual cases. This project site is both rare and unusual due to its location as well as its topography in relation to the mean high water elevation. So as you can see in Exhibit A here, the project site is located where Little's Creek and the South River meet. This location is rare and unusual as the intersection of the two rivers forms an elongated section of salt marsh and a peninsula that is unique to the site and not to other properties. Due to this elongated section of salt marsh formed in this location, it is not feasible to construct a dock in compliance with the regulations. This is unique and rare to this site as there are other shorter sections, as you can see, on nearby properties to both the east and the west. In addition, the project site is also rare and unusual due to the topography. The elevation of the top of the salt marsh is in close proximity to the mean high tide elevation. As you can see on this view here, that darker section over the salt marsh is your high tide as it spans the salt marsh. So Mike, if you scroll down to Exhibit B. So shown on Exhibit B here, I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit more to the right side. So an average high tide event, which is relative to a mean low water datum, which is what you typically see as the height reference on the tide charts. This is shown as that dark line that runs across horizontally on the screen there, labeled as MHW, mean high water. So this relates to elevation 3.95 on the site plan, which is a different datum. So the top of the salt is within 0.75 feet of the mean high water elevation. As you can see on this view here, there's a dimension in the middle of the screen there that shows that 0.75 foot difference So you can see that salt marsh elevation is just below the mean high tide elevation. So what this means is a very small change in the height of the high tide would result in a significant change in the location of the high water mark of the property. The left side of the screen, that vertical line, that's your mean high tide location. And then that dashed line to the right of that, that would result in a 0.75 difference in the high tide elevation, shifting that line 120.6 feet closer to Little's Creek. So nearly half of the yearly high tide elevations are 8.6 feet or less, which would shift that location to the high water line 2 feet closer to the Little's Creek, which would essentially meet the requirements of the length as it relates to that that high water mark. So that's a unique situation to this site that relates to the topography of that salt marsh. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have, or turn it back over to Adam for any comments.
No, thank you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners have any questions? Additional comments?
I had a question. Attorney Brodsky, you, in your opening statement, you mentioned a waiver. Is that synonym for variance? Is that?
Yes, it's been used interchangeably.
Okay, I just wanted to
in the
clarify.
discussion of these things.
I think another item that was requested at the last meeting was an alternative analysis supporting this request. I don't believe any of that had been submitted.
I do not recall being requested to provide that. I take detailed notes and try to take care in providing additional information. Again, I think in this instance, and I'll defer to Mr. Garland, it's a no-build alternative or a build alternative. There's nothing in between that would allow access to this water. And a no-build alternative would, I guess, require the property owners to drag their kayaks and walk across that length of salt marsh. So
Yeah, and
I
then.
don't think from an environmental protection point of view that that's a good solution, which is why, particularly with respect to salt marsh, and we discussed this, it is one of the most, if not the most, regulated coastal wetland resource area, which has a no adverse effect standard, except that there's an express provision under the state act which allows pile-supported structures so that homeowners and property owners can access the water.
Yeah, I'm reading our variance. The variance may be granted only for the following reasons, and it's explicit. In addition, the applicant shall submit an alternatives analysis which shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the commission that no feasible alternative to the proposed action exists.
And Paul,
don't think that
I'll have to
was-
grab a copy of the original.
I
variance
believe
request.
in the original narrative, it stated there was not an alternative.
Just that.
I would have to go back through the file,
Okay.
because we did, that did come up,
Oh,
and
for the riverfront? Yeah, I think an alternatives analysis was required for the riverfront.
Yeah, I don't think we've received anything besides the statement of there's no feasible alternative.
no feasible alternative.
Which. And then, secondly, while Craig's looking at that original submission, I know this dates back months now at this point. You mentioned the cumulative and significant adverse impacts of the wetland resources. I understand the argument and information that's provided regarding the length and the tides and such. I haven't seen really a lot of information regarding the impacts, both cumulatively and with this project regarding the specific wetland resource areas. And I don't think Grady is necessarily qualified to justify that either, from a wetland resource area standpoint, and the impacts of that too. So I think that's something that I thought was going to be addressed in the additional information you guys had prepared and provided. But that's my additional comments I guess I have.
So Vice Chair Malfronte, I believe contained in the waiver request dated February 24, 2026.
Variance or waiver request?
Excuse me, variance. I'll use, you're correct that you're,
I think you're being very careful on the wording purposefully, but.
I'm not trying to be clever here. I think it's habit because it's been historically discussed as a waiver. I'm going to use the word variance. The variance request dated February 24, 2026 contains an alternative analysis and actually includes the no-build option, and then there's analysis of a shortened pier. Again, the point being is that a shortened pier would not span the marsh to the high water mark, preventing access to the property during high tide, and it goes on from there.
Right.
With respect to, and I was careful about this, the variance standard talks about adverse effect on any wetland values, not necessarily wetland alteration. If you're looking for us to document the actual amount or square footage of salt marsh that would be impacted by the pilings, I think we have that information, Paul. If you're looking for an analysis from another expert, for example, a professional wetland scientist, we certainly can provide that to you. Grady is very experienced with designing and permitting piers. But if you would like that to be corroborated by, for example, a professional wetland scientist, we can certainly provide that information to you.
Yeah, I think I'm more hung up on the cumulative adverse effect. That has been discussed at the last meeting and then is discussed in this letter too. And it's a justification and kind of an assertion that granting of this won't have a cumulative adverse effect. And I don't think, in my eyes, supporting information regarding the cumulative adverse effect of that variance is something that has been submitted. Now, I certainly can go back and review that initial document, because I think what you're getting is there is some information in there. But yeah, that's.
So the definition of cumulative effects in your regulations are activities regulated under this chapter, which may be individually minor, but when considered in relation to other past, present, or future activities in a given area, may be significant in the aggregate. And Mr. Garland, there's presently no structure and no activity on this portion of this property, so I don't see how there could be any cumulative adverse effects because there's not any present adverse effect. It's vacant land, correct?
Yeah, other than, honestly, some other people in the area dragging their kayaks across it when needed or going out fishing. That's the only activity that's on the property, but it's not myself that's doing it, so.
Yes, the proposed dock would reduce cumulative adverse impacts as it would provide safe access over the marsh and not repeated foot traffic across the marsh.
I just also want to point out in the February 24th variance request, under alternative analysis, it states the project as proposed meets the performance standards of the Marshfield Wetlands Protection Regulations, and there are no feasible alternatives that would result in no adverse effects on the resource areas.
I'd just like to make the comment that I'm not sure this property is particularly unique in the Salt Marsh Crossing. I think further along the South River, the Ridge Road area, and then further upriver, past Wrexham, you'd find many similar type properties where you'd have to have a long crossing across Salt Marsh in order to have a dock on the river.
I'm sorry, Chair Hanford, were you quoting from the conclusion in that February 24th letter? I'm just trying to understand your quote.
I was reading from,
Yeah.
I have mine here, John, thank you.
The last page, which is the conclusion?
No. There's the cover page, and then almost a blank. Then the textual, 1, 2, and the third page there under the bold alternatives analysis.
Right. So it's the first sentence of the alternatives analysis, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Right. The letter makes clear, on the first page, that this project requires a variance because it does not meet the requirements of 505-304.1.E1. So it otherwise meets all of the state performance standards as well as your other performance standards within your regulations. That's the whole purpose of this letter. I don't think there was a suggestion in this letter that the project meets all of your 505 regulations. It clearly does not. That's why we're submitting the variance request. So again, I just want to be clear. Vice Chair Malafronte, would you like us to get an opinion from, for example, a professional wetland scientist to corroborate Brady's professional opinion that the construction of the dock will not result in a cumulative adverse effect on the wetland values protected by the bylaw? We can provide that information.
I think that's pertinent information to support this. And I'm not questioning Grady's ability as engineers, surveyors, architects, right? They're just not licensed in environmental management, planning, wetlands, coastal resources. So unless I'm mistaken, but I don't believe that's the case.
Again, I'm assuming that Brady worked with a wetland professional, at least with respect to the location of the salt marsh, although candidly, with respect to salt marsh, I don't think you need a wetland scientist to locate those boundaries.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about also the habitat impacts of that.
I think we're looking for some substantive scientific
Understood.
information.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult.
We'll provide you with a
I
simplified.
think that's what Sam's
Yeah.
looking for, I'm sorry.
Happy, again, we want to have a complete application. We want to answer all of your questions. I was not previously aware of this concern, but we can certainly, with the client's permission, engage a professional wetland scientist to review this and to provide a professional opinion, as you've requested. We probably could also ask that wetland scientist to provide a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation here. There's no trigger for a wildlife habitat evaluation either under the state act or your regulations, but we certainly can provide that. It's salt marsh.
I think that what you summarize is correct.
Or is there anything else? Again, we're trying to bring this to a close. Anything else that the commission, and we'll take into consideration, Member O'Donnell, your comments. I think we have a respectful disagreement.
So if this is going to continue, I have another suggestion. It might be very helpful to everyone to have an analysis of daily tide cycles from June to October, demonstrating when there is more than 3 feet of water during daylight hours.
And may I ask, why is that required?
I wonder how feasible it is to use this as a swimming platform if
So
there's not
whether-
going to be adequate water
Sure.
to swim in.
Again, whether someone can use that for 1 hour or 8 hours, I don't think is relevant to this commission's jurisdiction. That's a land use issue. If we can provide that information to you, I put it on my list, but I don't understand how that relates to your wetland values for salt marsh.
I think one of the concerns is impact on the substrate in the tidal flat.
From swimming,
Well, there's not a lot of water there to swim in. People are going to be on the bottom.
Well, additionally, the plan for the platform is to be able to kayak from that particular location. To have kayaks, there are paddle boards down there at the end of the dock and not have to drag them across the salt marsh to get out through Little's Creek, which is, if you know that community, we're there, that's kind of how it's done now. Our residents that have been there for years and years and years. So all I'm trying to do is avoid that, have those abilities to not do anything motorized, however, kayak from that position. Whether there's 6 inches of water or 4 feet of water, when the water comes all the way in to the road, which is called, what's called the old mail road, I guess, paper road, that's the other reason for it. I mean, we've demonstrated that we're not going to put a boat there. I don't need to put a boat there. That's not really what I'm in for. I'm trying to enjoy that portion of my property that I paid for to access Little's Creek, like other docks that have been there, obviously prior to regulations changing. But I'm just, I would enjoy trying to do that. So that's kind of my point of the whole thing, so.
people wade into tidal flats all the time to go fishing and swimming.
They do, but
I don't think that activity
permitting
is perceived.
something.
Well, no, I don't think that activity is perceived as being potentially having an adverse effect on land under water. If that's the case, we should close all of the beaches, because that's also the similar resource area. But if we can provide that information, we'll provide that information.
I would like to see it. Other commissioners?
You would like to see, once again, could you
The tide
explain?
cycles.
Tide cycles.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting just
Yeah,
to know when there is water.
So how do I do that?
The qualification is, I've never been asked to do that. I don't know how to do that. We're going to have to figure out whether that's even feasible.
Like with the water level?
I mean, we can provide you with the title, the estimated title charts. I remember seeing little pamphlets that are
Tide charts.
that are produced, which are estimates usually based upon a Boston datum. I'm not sure they're even site specific, but you can see what the tidal cycle, I don't know how that translates to a particular location.
Mr. Seberg, can you shed any light on tide cycle analyses?
Yeah, I mean, we can show how many hours, but a day that it reaches I guess we show approximately that information, but again, I don't know what we're trying to demonstrate, as Adam said. And then obviously the tides vary throughout the day and the time of day. I mean, you could have high tide at night and low tide during the day. So I don't really know what we're
That's part
trying
of
to
my
demonstrate with
question
this.
that I'd be curious to see. That's me.
But that's gonna constantly change throughout the year all the time, so I don't
Right. It's going to
really
shift.
understand it.
Yeah.
That's why I'd be curious to see the analysis.
When it's low tide at Grant Rock, people walk further out on the substrate to get access to the water. I mean, I'm just at a loss as to how that relates to this project.
If I'm the only one, fine, but if
I get what you're saying, but, I mean, what if he wants to kayak at night? Would that, I don't know if there's enough, information about water level data that would, influence our decision on whether or not to grant a variance.
Yeah, I would somewhat agree with that. I also, location-wise, I think is important with that, because although the high tide or low tide could be at a certain time at, I don't know where, the beach or Boston Harbor, at this location, it could be at a slightly different time because.
Oh, it would be?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be very difficult to.
Well, there's tide shots.
There's a
Well,
tide.
it's also, you have the intersection of two rivers, you have an impoundment effect, trying to determine actual tidal
Yeah,
tide at this location is, I don't even know how to do it.
you would need to have somebody deploy like a water level logger that automatically collects the water level and have it adjusted for barometric pressure like every 6 minutes over a full lunar cycle, which I think is maybe a little too much information to require for a residential permit. And even if we did get the data, I mean, I don't think I would use that to influence my decision.
Okay.
That's sort of where I'm at as well. I mean, it's interesting data, but I'm not sure that's what our core issues are here.
Okay. So I think we're in agreement that you don't have to do the analysis of daily tide cycles. However, Vice Chair Malafronte did request that additional information on the wetland values from another qualified expert in the field of wetland science.
Yes.
Be done. And
I offered a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation so that you have an understanding of what that habitat is out there. I'm going to guess it's salt marsh habitat. And again, the construction of a pile-supported dock or pier, I think, will not impact any values or the value of preserving wildlife habitat.
Right, and to add to that, Adam, we did receive a letter from Division of Marine Fisheries regarding this project. And also, I believe NHESP, and they both confirmed that it would have no impacts, as well as that the dock was constructed without 1.5 to 1 height to width ratio and adequate spacing to allow for light penetration to the salt marsh below. So it's designed in accordance with their standards and their conditions.
And well, we are in shellfish habitat and will be required to do provide shellfish mitigation. We've calculated that, that payment to the Shellfish Mitigation Fund, and I believe the harbor master has addressed that in his comments.
Oh, do we have new comments from the harbor master?
No,
Oh, what's the date on the comments you're referring to? The date that you're referring to comments from the harbor master?
Oh, my goodness,
That was back in January.
that was a long time.
Okay.
Before my time, I saw,
Okay.
saw his
I just wanted
comments.
to make
I
sure
saw
that I
Grady's
didn't-
response to his comments. I have recently spoken to him, as I have indicated.
January
Make sure.
16th.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
And again,
That's just a
as
standard calculation for shellfish mitigation, right?
sorry?
Isn't that just the standard
That's correct.
shellfish mitigation?
That's correct. That's correct. But as I said, I did recently speak to the harbor master on at least 2 occasions with respect to this, so I could understand what he was really getting at. And as I said, I think what he's getting at, which is reflected in his comments, is he's just fearful at some point in the future, someone is going to violate an order, which is why I addressed it in my comments.
Okay, so I think we have we have a choice that we can make here. We can continue to ask.
We are going to request a continuance so we can provide you with that additional information.
Okay.
I guess the question is, Paul, can we get a PWS to provide us with an opinion letter as well as a simplified wildlife habitat evaluation prior to the next meeting, which I think is the 17th?
yes, it is the 17th.
And you're going to want that ahead of time, obviously. So
The alternatives analysis, Sam, were you
I mean, I think,
satisfied with that?
yeah, I don't know, we, in our regulations, we mentioned, there's a mention somewhere, I can find it, but there's a mention that shared docks or something that the commission is seeking.
If I may, I talked to both my neighbors, they're both elderly on each side of me, have no
Not
interest in
interested
sharing
in-
a dock.
Okay. So I guess that kind of satisfies the other requirement of that alternative analysis. I do understand where you're, the alternative is no build, right?
yes. There's no way to accomplish the project purpose in any other,
Without having, yeah.
without building this particular dock.
I don't want to be Captain Obvious, but there is that little portion of water that is right next to the salt marsh, to the left of the property. Yes,
That inlet,
yeah.
um,
Could you accomplish
What is the depth of
essentially
that?
the
it's,
same thing?
it's, depends on the tide. I mean, depends on the time of day, honestly, it fills up with every high tide. But I don't know the calculations. Paul would have to speak on how that would be affected or feasibility
Yeah,
of that.
and both Army Corps and DEP Waterways will want to see a 25-foot setback from the property line, so it wouldn't really be feasible to shift the dock over to be placed in that little inlet, or would you be able to size the swim platform within that inlet? Also result in pile placement close proximity to the edge of the salt marsh, which might cause fracture to the marsh itself. So not really an ideal spot for trying to squeeze a swim platform in there.
Okay.
So that would be an alternatives analysis that would get rejected, right, because it's not feasible? So you
Correct.
could- you could
Correct.
show
We
an
addressed a
alternatives
shorter
analysis for a
pier.
shorter pier.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That might meet the regulations, but it would be rejected on
But
other grounds.
that's the kind of thing that is what an alternatives analysis would be, to
So
show
that's-
that this is preferred alternative because all the other ones wouldn't accomplish the same.
Right, so we did address, shorten the length of the pier, which is what you're suggesting shifting over. If you would like us to supplement the alternatives analysis to speak about the creek, putting the structure on the creek, we can add that to the alternatives analysis if you'd like us to do that. Again, I don't even know if that's a creek or a mosquito ditch, I don't know.
It's, yeah, it just fills up. It's just the way the land is.
I don't think it's a mosquito ditch. I think it's,
I don't know.
No, as we stood there the other day, we said, okay, well, here's an alternative. I don't know if it's a feasible alternative, but it's an alternative that meets the shorter pier, probably would meet the shorter pier requirement. But then if it would be denied on other grounds, because it's not a viable alternative, then you'd say, okay, well, here was an alternative analysis that gets us to the water, which is what your goal is. You know, your property rights to get to the water. There's an alternative. It is an analysis that we did on this option, but we had to reject it for these valid reasons, which means then, okay, the other option is the extended pier.
Yes, sir, we'll put that in writing. We'll supplement the alternatives analysis and specifically address that.
All right. So I guess we will,
So again, I sort of asked Paul, I don't know, Paul, can we get this information, the Conservation Commission, prior to the next hearing on June 6th, 17th?
I think we'll need more time to be able to provide that a week before the hearing.
May I ask when your next meeting is after June 17th?
then it's July
1st.
July 1st.
Paul, do you think we can get that done?
I think July 1st would be reasonable.
Request a continuance, please, to July 1st.
all right. Any other comments from the public or on Zoom?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure, please identify yourself.
Sure, Harry Klebanoff, 52 Assumption Road.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the things I expressed before about this situation is back to Vice Chair Malafante's comments about the impact on the ecosystems of the salt marsh. The town had hired Leslie Fields, a senior research consultant, ocean geologist from Woods Hole, to do some work for the town on how to mitigate flood damage. And her findings back in 23 and 24 that she presented were that the areas of the town that had flooded previously had 100% likelihood of flooding again. And that the best protection was to make sure that we did our best to preserve and protect the salt marshes and the wetlands. That would be our best chance in terms of nature's sponge, and that seawalls weren't going to protect the town. There are other people since Leslie who have also taken a look and talked about Marshfield as being a place that really needs to have these marshes and salt marshes protected. It was just a 2-year study that prioritized restoring and protecting the Green Harbor and Grant Rock marsh areas as a way to mitigate flood damage, wave surge, etc. And all of these findings were about 2 years ago, and anybody that's watched the weather in the last 2 years can see that things have intensified, not calmed down in terms of storms, wind, rain, snow, etc. So I have some concerns about how important the protection of the marsh is, but I also wanted to share that I don't think we're just talking about the difference between building a long dock or dragging a kayak. Most of the research that I have read says that it's very significant to put a long dock or a highway over a forest or over wetlands, and that the impact is going to be on the entire wetlands, that when they've done bioacoustic measures of soil and sediment, they're finding very significant differences between healthy and unhealthy forests and wetlands. And I think the fact that we can't see any difference doesn't mean that there isn't a difference. We don't see carbon dioxide, but most of us would agree that there's more of it in the air and the atmosphere than there used to be. The salt marshes also store 50 times more carbon than the same size acre of forest. If we protect the wetlands, that stays stored. If we walk around and if we impact them in a negative way, that gets released. The other issue is most of the studies that have been done on soil in wetlands is a lot different than what you would find in the ocean. That's why Attorney Brodsky's comment about walking in the ocean and walking in a salt marsh, they're very different. When we look at what's in salt marshes, usually in this area, there was a lot of spraying of DDT in the 60s and 70s. There are also a lot of runoffs from fertilizer and industrial metals. And there's some people that really specialize if you're looking to get analysis of the sediment. We should know what's going to be stirred up, not just by building a dock, but by walking around in there. And we shouldn't assume that because it looks like the same wetland that we'll do damage just by adding humans, adding noise. Plants, wetlands, trees, they're just as sensitive and they have more sense organs than we people do. They're sensitive to light, to noise, and they react. And it isn't just on somebody's property. Damage to an ecosystem in a wetland affects the entire wetland. So I think it's really important to take a good look at what the impact could be, both in terms of decreasing flood protection, storm protection, but also storing up a lot of chemicals and potential pollutants that really could impact not just humans, but certainly the ecosystems of the wetlands too. And I'm happy to share a lot of research with whoever you get to take a look at this that discusses a lot of these things.
Thank you, Mr. Klebanoff. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to continue this hearing to July 1st. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Okay. That concludes the hearings for this evening. Now we have business. The first item is 8 Liberty Road, replacement of sonotubes for a deck rebuild. Can you tell us about this, Mike?
Yes, let me pull up a site plan. They're seeking a de minimis activity for this work. They're seeking to just replace this back deck here at a 1-to-1 replacement. In order to do that, they need to replace one sonotube.
I can't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Seems to be tonight's habit. Yes, so here's the back deck here. They're just seeking to make a 1-to-1 replacement. Typically, if decks are replaced and they don't need to replace a footing, then they don't need to go through our department, as there's no impact to the subsurface. So in my opinion, this is pretty de minimis.
Okay. Any commissioner comment? I move to allow the replacement of a sonotube for the deck rebuild at 8 Liberty Road as a de minimis activity. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, Green Harbor Marina. They have changed the location of the electrical shed. It looks like they've moved it all the way out to almost this Dyke Road.
Yeah, so they moved it way farther away from the resource area than was originally proposed. I am in favor of this design change. It's still within jurisdictional boundaries, and they didn't want to go through the process of refiling an RDA for a different location of the same building, essentially. So they're seeking a de minimis activity to essentially go along with that RDA, or determination of applicability 2603, just noting the new location of the shed.
Why such a significant change? I mean, it appears,
I'm not positive, other than I would just assume that it's taking less trenching and utilities having it in this location where it is closer to the seawall, the bulkhead that they do run utilities down. So I think it would likely just make more sense for them to run the conduit from the street to this shed rather than all the way to the seawall at the end.
Mike, does that shed's just kind of in the middle of the parking lot now?
Yeah, it's fairly close to like the end of the structure where there's so there's like a parking space here and then there's like a rooftop deck type restaurant area back here. So it might be taking away like a parking space or two. But
not that it's our jurisdiction at all, but has this, I would assume that they have a building permit for this or something of that sort? Or how does that work?
I know that they would need a building permit for the construction of the shed, especially utilities, but I would defer to the building department on exact
Okay.
specifications.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's not our jurisdiction, I just.
any,
No issues with that.
no issues?
Much better.
Pretty okay? All right. I move to approve as de minimis the change of location for the electrical shed at 239 Dyke Road. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And 49 Waterman Avenue, where do we stand on that one? I think we had some questions about,
Yes, Mr. Shaughnessy's online. He did provide confirmation from his neighbor that he's on board with the site plans there. I uploaded the original RDA for the commission's reference. Mr. Shaughnessy, would you like to speak further on this project? Your iPhone is muted, by the way, so you'll have to unmute your microphone.
I think our concern was whether or not the neighbor was on board.
Yes, that was the main concern. He has confirmation from Mr. Manning, via text message that he sent me.
Mr. Shaughnessy, would you like to say anything? Is he there?
I can call him.
I mean, as long as the neighbor is on board, I think that was the only sticking point.
Yes, and I believe it was question 2 if both parcels were included in the RDA, and they were.
They were.
Yes, Mr. Shaughnessy's calling me. I can put him on speaker.
Okay.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Bob. You're on speaker in front of the commission.
Yeah, I can't get on Zoom with my, for some reason. So I'm gonna have to call you. I'm gonna have to speak by phone.
Well, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I walked on Sunday. I walked it with John Manning and explained that we wanted to put the rocks there, so that the end of this pavement is where we wanted to put some rocks all the way down to where the entrance is to the beach, above the 25-foot buffer zone. And the reason why we want that is because the plants that we want to plant will get trampled from beachgoers as they have in the past. So we're trying to make that middle of that road more vegetative, protected. And John Manning Jr. and Jack Manning, who is the owner, we had conversations, and there's some we agreed to it. And I talked to Jack Manning today, and he agreed that we want no vehicle traffic beyond the pavement, and that the rocks would achieve protecting the plants.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? In that case, I think we can approve the placement of some large rocks to prohibit vehicular traffic and keep beachgoers off of what will be planted there. I move to approve. May I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Shaughnessy.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, 1222 South River Street, they are changing their pool design. They've eliminated the pool house.
Yes, they eliminated the pool house. I have the two plans here to juxtapose in front of you. They eliminated the pool house here within jurisdictional setbacks, and to stabilize the slope around the end of the pool, they kind of realized this could be an issue. They want to put in a retaining wall here, just around the perimeter of the pool. So here's the original design, with the pool house and mechanicals within the buffer zone. So they want to remove that and then add a retaining wall to stabilize the back of this pool area. They're seeking to capture these changes on an as-built site plan.
Mike, and that's all within the limited disturbance that was approved?
Only this area here, like, you can see the 100-foot buffer zone here, so only a fraction of that pool area is within our jurisdiction.
But it's all within, the red line is the silt sock, I would assume? Is that correct, or is that the?
Yes, yeah, it's all within the silt socked area.
Okay.
Okay, so they're adding some retaining wall, but taking out a structure?
Yes.
So,
Slope will probably vegetate a lot better, too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they just want to capture that in an as-built?
Yes, that's correct.
Do we even need a vote on that? Well, we'll vote. I move to approve the removal of the pool house, the addition of a retaining wall, and all to be captured in the as-built. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the Marshfield Airport. We have had an ongoing issue with vegetation management there. I have informed the commission of what has happened. Bottom line, we got stopped from finishing vegetative maintenance that was begun back in April, and we are now at risk of having the Phragmites, which are revegetating, make it impossible to continue clearing the debris that was left. I was out there this morning. The Phragmites are already taller than I am in some areas. And at a ZBA meeting in May, town council suggested that an emergency certification would allow us to go in and finish the job that was started and get back to a baseline where we can then come up with a new planting plan for the area. There was a planting plan done in 2014, which completely failed. Not one plant that was put in at that time has survived. So that became neglected. We need to revisit that. We need a new planting plan. We have spoken with DEP and DCR, and we agreed back in April to meet again at the end of June. I believe we have a meeting on June 26th to see how the revegetation is proceeding. In the meantime, an emergency certification is issued pending our ratification tonight.
Craig, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I had Mike send me the vegetation management plan. Obviously, that predates my time in town and on the commission. I guess, what is the what's the need for an emergency certificate when we have a vegetative maintenance plan? Like, doesn't the vegetative maintenance plan capture?
From our perspective, yes.
Okay.
And the Conservation Commission our involvement here is strictly through the vegetative management plan.
Right.
And from our perspective, the vegetative management plan was followed when the mowing took place on April 14th.
Yeah, I did, the VMP it appears yearly. I didn't know the town had a machine like that, first of all. That thing's
Yeah,
quite
I mean, that's a
machine.
big deal. That was made available through a federal grant specifically to control airport vegetation. This is outside of the fence, but inside of the fence, you have huge marsh areas around the
And
runways.
just to give a summary of, the idea is that the management's required based on FAA.
Well, you have
regulations, is that-
FAA, you have EPA, you have Massachusetts Airport. I mean, we are way down on the line when it comes to the permitting authorities
Of this stuff.
at the
Why it's
airport.
required.
And why it's all required. And the major concern here is safety. The gate on Plymouth Avenue must be accessible to emergency vehicles
Okay,
in the event of a crash.
right.
And the area all along Plymouth has been neglected for too long, and it had become so overgrown. The Phragmites are fine. They're not tall enough to interfere with the airspace.
Right.
However, all the saplings and trees coming up in the Phragmites had gotten too far.
Right.
So we needed to, at one point, maybe a year or two ago, they attempted to hire someone to go in and hand cut stuff in the Phragmites on the other side of the fence, and the work crew quit immediately. It was just not feasible to get in there. So, we thought we were in compliance with the VMP, but Mr. Stewart filed a notice of floodplain violation and buffer zone violation on April 27th, which stopped our work.
So just to clarify, the emergency certificate kind of surpasses that? Is that the idea? Is that-
Because of the time sensitivity of getting the cleanup done,
That's, okay. I just want to make sure I fully
Town
understand.
council suggested that if the airport requested an emergency certification from conservation, it would give us the opportunity to get the place cleaned out and then,
And then I did watch the ZBA meeting from the other night, and it appeared that there's going to be some plan submitted to satisfy those vegetation or,
right, we have actually filed an appeal
yeah,
of the violation. But regardless, we intend to come up with a new planting plan
okay.
for the outside of the fence on Plymouth Avenue, one that is sustainable. They planted a line of like 30 hemlocks in 2014.
And not one's there.
Not one is there, which is probably a good thing because they would have had to be pruned twice a year. Hemlocks grow incredibly fast. I don't know who, and there were various other alders and such. Nothing is left.
Okay. And I'm
It wasn't ever maintained or monitored properly.
Okay. And I'm also asking these questions just to make sure
Yeah.
everyone who's listening to is also aware of the process here.
So
Right.
letting the Phragmites regrow, that's just an interim thing. when it comes-
Yeah, the Phragmites are fine. If we can get a field of Phragmites there without everything else in it, it's manageable, because the Phragmites are never going to impede the airspace.
And I think it was one thing on that, it was discussed at the ZBA meeting, basically having an alignment between the site plan and the VMP, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
that's something that doesn't make sense.
It
now.
doesn't make sense now. They're different, yeah.
Right, so.
So that's where we are. A man has been hired, a tree company. He is cleaning it out by hand. And then we'll let the Phragmites do their thing and revisit it.
Chair Hanford, I received a public comment from online, if you'd like me to read it into the
Please.
record. This is from Mary Murphy. What's your address so I can read it into the record? To identify. Mary, could you please identify? I see that you sent a message in the chat for the purposes of identifying yourself for a public meeting. So, yep, she identified herself as Mary Murphy, 252 Ocean Street, and asked, why has this become an emergency? Don't they do cleanup on a yearly basis?
No, they don't do cleanup on a yearly basis. The rough mowing outside the fence is done, it can be done every year. It has not been done for, I think, 3 or more years. I can't fully explain that, but that's how we got to a point where we had lost control of the vegetation.
Who lost control? The commission or the airport?
No, the airport.
Okay. Do we have any pictures of the area or what it looks like?
I may on the Google Drive. If I don't, then I don't really have a way of sharing them.
I think things got, something happened during COVID where the schedule was not maintained. And when did we get the Marsh Master? I'm not
entirely sure when
Yeah.
we came into possession of the Marsh Master.
Can I interject some information here? Is that appropriate?
Go ahead, Bill.
William Finn, 96 Dog Lane, consultant to the Conservation Commission. Now, we've had the Marsh Master now for, the airport has had the Marsh Master for about 4 or 5 years now. The reason, ordinarily, a vegetation management plan for an airport is done over a 5-year period with yearly operating plans for each year. And at the end of that 5-year period, if no management of the vegetation procedures has changed, then a letter update is sufficient to continue the vegetation management plan for another 5 years. That's generally what was done until, in Marshfield, until they acquired the Marsh Master through a grant from FAA. Once they acquired the Marsh Master, the vegetation management procedures at the airport changed dramatically. They used to try and manage the vegetation by hand and with also a John Deere rubber-tired tractor. That tractor used to get stuck in, I'm talking about on the other side of the fence, and in fact on either side of the fence, but on the other side of the fence, the airport side of the fence, it used to get stuck when it would go in there and try to manage the vegetation. So the airport used to hire, or tried to hire crews to go in there and hand cut it with chainsaws. They went in and tried to cut it with chainsaws. The crew lasted 1 day and they quit. It was that bad. So they got the Marsh Master as a result of that, and the Marsh Master changed the way because the Marsh Master does a great job in controlling vegetation. It takes vegetation out up to 3 inches in diameter. It can handle that kind of vegetation. So when they acquired the Marsh Master, the operations on vegetation management changed dramatically. Hence, they had to do a new VMP, which was done, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. I forget the exact date. I think it has 2 more years remaining before the 5-year period expires. And that marsh master, I mean, that new vegetation management plan incorporated all of the provisions of using the marsh master, as well as identifying the area that's in discussion here as being subject to heavy mowing. The issue here is not so much that that vegetation management plan did not recognize the existence of the site plan approval that was done back in 2014. One of the objectives that we're trying to do right now, which the Zoning Board of Appeals wanted to make sure that the vegetation management plan and the site plan approval were in sync together. And one of our objectives here is now when we re-update the management plan, I mean the BMP in 2 years, we're going to incorporate this new vegetation management plan for Plymouth Avenue. And so we will have the site plan that we're working on to get done now incorporated into the vegetation management plan at the 5-year update. And that's how we want to get these 2 coordinated together. So, in fact, they will be in sync. And that was the request of the chair of the ZBA. The vegetation that we want to cut now, it bears absolutely no relationship to the vegetation that was described in the 2014 site plan approval by the ZBA. What we have now is some really straggly stuff along the fence line that's out of control. The management plan, I mean the site plan approval in 2014 had a bunch of hemlocks, 30 of them, planted along the fence line to screen the fence. And they were, one of the provisions of those hemlocks, of planting those, was that they had to prune them to a height 12 to 15 feet in height. They couldn't grow any higher than that. And what happened was they died. They never got to that point. So they never pruned them. They died. And none of the species that are in that that site plan approval exist on the site. What we have is some trees that are along the fence line that are well over 12 and 15 feet in height. We want to cut those down. And what we want to do also is there are some trees out, there's like 1 or 2 or 3 trees in the center of this strip between Plymouth Avenue and the fence that are like 27 feet. They're as high as the telephone poles. There are, at the edge of Plymouth Avenue, you can't have something higher than 31 feet is where penetration begins. And the regulations allow you to cut 5 feet before that, so you can cut potential penetration. So the cutting at Plymouth Avenue should start when a vegetation reaches 27 feet. And then it gets lower and lower as you approach the fence, which is 50 feet away. And so by the time you get to the fence, you shouldn't have anything higher than 12 to 15 feet. And that was what was agreed to in the site plan approval back in 2014. We're trying to get to that point and let the existing Phragmites grow back, see if that provides an adequate screen. And if it does not provide an adequate screen, what we would propose to do is to plant on the outside of that that Phragmites growth on the Plymouth Avenue side of that growth, not on the fence side, because you can't see the fences once those Phragmites get up. You can't see the fence. So there's no sense in trying to provide a screen for something you can't see anyway. So we want to provide the screen, if it's necessary, along Plymouth Avenue. And we want to plant that with species that do not grow more than 15 feet in height. They do not attract wildlife. They're salt tolerant, and several other criteria, which really limits the type of species that we can plant along Plymouth Avenue, because they have to meet those at least those minimal criteria. There are species that do it, but we certainly don't want to plant something that's going to attract wildlife. And that eliminates a lot of species that we could plant, because that's right in the flight path. And the last thing we want to do is plant species that are going to attract birds right in the flight path of the airport. So all of these things are in consideration. We're going back to the ZBA in June. We're meeting with the DEP and DCR on the 26th, and then we're going back to the ZBA with a site plan, hopefully in July. And by that time, what we need to do in the meantime is to cut down the trees that are grown along that fence line. There's not a ton of them, but there are a lot of saplings and stuff that's well over 15 feet high, 12 feet. And then there's one or two trees in the buffer zone between Plymouth Avenue and the fence that we want to cut down. And then we'll be done. That's what we mean by let us finish managing the vegetation in that buffer zone, and then we'll start over with a new planting plan that we hope will work and that can be maintained.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Stewart is at the podium.
Yeah, thanks. Andrew Stewart, 5 Royal Dean Drive, Building Commissioner, concerned resident, and environmentalist. I wrote this notice of violation in response to a request for enforcement of the zoning bylaws, that the zoning bylaws had been violated. We have an industrial wholesale transportation and industrial use on town property, and adjacent to that is a residential district, zoning district. When you have that type of a use, you're required to have a 35-foot vegetated buffer between that zoning, the residential zoning district, and that use. So when, prior to 2014, there was never a fence. It was all just natural vegetation. It's always been just natural species, natural vegetation. And then in about 2014, they asked to put this fence down there. And part of that site plan approval was not just putting those hemlocks in, which they agreed at a continued hearing didn't work and didn't take, and that they were encouraged by the fact that the natural growth was going to be there, and you were going to have about, with the fence being 50 feet from the roadway, you'd have a 5-foot shoulder, 35-foot naturally vegetated buffer, and then they told the ZBA that they were going to maintain 10 feet around the fence every year, and they were going to maintain the access to the gate, and they were going to maintain 10 feet around the fence. So the airport has failed to do that over the years. And so now what has been explained to me is we need to get access to that gate again. If you need access to that gate, why clear cut the entire area? You need access to the gate, get access to the gate. Don't clear cut the entire area free of all of the natural species, only to invite an invasive species in and say it's okay because it achieves our airspace goals. Well, it violates the zoning bylaws and the protection of our residential districts and our residential neighborhoods. And one thing that it's important to remember is there wouldn't be an airport without a zoning bylaw allowing the land use there in the first place. So when you say like we're last on the list, zoning's first on the list, because it wouldn't even happen without the zoning bylaw allowing it. And so in order to allow that use, we have to protect our residential neighbors from that use, and that is the buffer that was there. And if you go back and look at all the pictures over time, which I'm sure Mike could actually bring up on your map, because it's a web app, and it's right there on the screen, but you can go back to 2014, see all the natural vegetation. Then you can see the fence that they put in, and then you can see how it was completely grown in and remained so for the next 12 years, until this year, when we decided it's time to just clear cut the whole thing with the Marsh Master. Drive through the drainage ditches, leave, I mean, it was not careful. It was not a careful job. And they were going over, if you talk, you really look through that VMP and you talk about the, trees that are 4 inches height at breast height diameter, right? They ran over those trees, just ran them over. They didn't go in and selectively cut anything. And the VMP also says there's rough mowing, but that they're supposed to go in there and selectively cut, right? Identify potential future penetrations to selectively cut in the future year, right? That's what the VMP says. It's not just go in there and let's cut it right now because we're saying and it's an emergency. What's the emergency? What's the actual safety thing other than getting the access to the gate? If it's getting access to the gate, get access to the gate, and that's what the ZBA is okay with. What the ZBA is not okay with, and I can speak for them on this because I've talked to the chair and I've talked to town council about this today, is continuing to let any cutting happening they want to see, right now you have a violation, and Corey, thank you very much for pointing it out that it's not the Conservation Commission appealing this decision, because the chair said we are appealing this decision, so I wanted to make that very distinct that it's not the conservation, it's the town airport commission that is appealing the decision, so thanks for making that distinction. That appeal, until that appeal, my decision is overturned, the violation stands. So no more cutting can happen. If you guys want to make an emergency to clear access for safety, or to remove the dead brush that has already been cut so that there's no potential fire hazard, which, again, I don't know if you've talked to the fire chief, like I have, but he doesn't see any fire hazard in what happened down there. I certainly don't either, and I've been down there quite a bit. And we are the two officials, highest officials that deal with fire hazards in this town. So if it's about getting access to the gate for a potential crash or something like that, do that. Get the vines off the gate by all means, clear access to it. But that vegetative buffer is supposed to be there for the residents' protection. And it was just clear cut without any thought because of the VMP. But the VMP doesn't trump zoning bylaws. And that's I need that to be made clear to the rest of the commission members, because I've had the meetings with Bill and Craig and everything else, and they came in, and to be told that it's fine that we cut all this natural vegetation because we actually don't care about the Phragmites coming in and we want to encourage the Phragmites coming in, that's contrary to everything we say to every other resident in town when they're doing development on their property. We don't want invasive species. And that's even the point of using the Marsh Master on the Phragmites, is to decrease the population and decrease the seed bank. But right now, we just eliminated all these natural species that were holding off the Phragmites from encroaching further to the road, and we've allowed that growth and seed bank to just open right up there. So that's my concern as somebody who really cares about the environment, who sees this type of stuff go on in town every single day, and who actually wrote the notice of violation that's going to get either appealed or adhered to. Thank you.
With respect to selective cutting, yes, selective cutting is an ongoing concern both inside and outside the fence. The way this had become so overgrown, selective cutting was not tenable. With respect to invasive species, I totally agree. This is the first time I've ever had anyone advocate for Phragmites. But realistically, those Phragmites are not going to be eliminated on either side of that fence in any near time. We're just trying to get back to a baseline where we can attempt a planting plan that will be successful on the outside of that fence, and will screen it for people, and it will not intrude into airspace. The gate has to be open. The gate is critical for safety. Fire risk, I'm not concerned about fire risk either. But if we don't clear out what's already been cut there, we're just going to be right back to square one.
Could I also say something again? I agree with Andrew that we need to establish a visual buffer zone for the residents that live in that area. I completely agree, and that's what we're attempting to do. The Phragmites is the most logical and physically able species to grow in there and provide that screen. It will be a dense screen that we can supplement. And I've thought about supplementing it possibly with cattail seeding as a species. But we'll also consider along Plymouth Avenue, but not along the fence, additional species that will provide a more visually pleasing screen than just the Phragmites, which would be behind it. And we have not come up with those species yet, and that's part of the planting plan that we're trying to get done. But the reason that the area was clear cut, if you want to say that, and I think it's a rational description of what happened, is that the area was out of control. It had not been maintained according to the site plan approval that was given in 2014. And we're trying to rectify that. But it was out of control. There were species, woody species in there, and we do have pictures of it. I just don't have them in front of me right now that would show you what that place looked like before it was cut.
Are we doing the appeal of my decision now?
Just a minute. Let Mr.
And
Finn
so,
finish.
I think we have the same objective in mind, which is to create the buffer zone and screen that use from the neighborhood. And that's what we're trying to do. And the need to cut some of those trees that are existing there right now is to protect the airspace. They are they're almost penetrating. If they aren't, they may be penetrating the airspace now, and that has a significant, or can have a significant impact on the requirements that the grants that we have received from the federal agencies, FAA and Mass DOT. We'd be in violation of some of those grant provisions unless we control this vegetation that's potentially penetrating protected airspace. So that's the safety issue as well. It's not just, it's really protecting those airspaces and complying with grant requirements. And we really do want to establish that screen.
Bill, if I could make a comment, so is it true, so the VMP hasn't been, prior to owning the Marsh Master, there wasn't a feasible way to, you guys have said that the man cutting wasn't feasible really, based on the location.
Yeah, they never were able to keep up, you know.
Right, so since 2020, when the Marsh Master was obtained by the town, this hasn't happened ever?
What hasn't happened?
The cutting of the rough mowing.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, so I feel as if.
Not in this area, on the other side.
So I guess the question also a lot, like, so if you read that VMP, it identifies this area as yearly rough mowing.
Yes, it does.
So that just hasn't happened ever?
No, and the reason is there was COVID in those 2 years, and they never got to it, and it just never got done.
So the answer is, I'm trying to understand.
It was not maintained. That buffer zone has not been properly maintained. By the airport.
So it hasn't been maintained for 12 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's. and I
If
guess
you
that's
bring up
good.
near map, you can see. Mike can show on near map and literally go every 3 or 4 months, and you can see the changes that have happened there over the years, up until, yes, here you go, the clear cutting that happened just here in April.
Is those the two maps? Mike?
2014.
That's 2014, before they put the fence in, and this is today. But if you go back even, Mike, go to last year, go to last July. Right, that's what it looked like last July. So you talk about getting safe emergency access, it's never once been done. So if this is the case, that you need emergency access over there, cut the emergency access and get access to the gate. But leave the buffer zone alone, because the buffer zone is required by zoning. So go in there and if you, actually, Mike, if you go back to 2015, on the right-hand side, or, so you can see when they put the fence in, and this is when we had already realized that the hemlocks weren't gonna work, and they said, you know what, we've got the whole naturally vegetated buffer zone right there. That's what we're gonna go with for our buffer zone. And that's why it's never been touched. That's why it's never been mowed. It's outside the fence, it's a required buffer zone. Yes, go in there and selectively cut any potential airspace penetrations, future penetrations, and keep the gate clear for emergency access. But the rest of it is required by zoning. And so it's been cut, and yes, there's an appeal of my violation. There's actually not been anything, everything that's been presented to me has been quite the contrary, that they don't want to do they don't want to do site plan approval, they don't want to go through the process of dealing with the ZBA, even the first emergency certification that I got yesterday said that it was impossible to do revegetation of this area because the Phragmites have already invaded the area.
Wait a minute.
That was written on the thing that was sent to me yesterday, first, and I got the second version.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you. It was
but, hey,
amended.
Yes, it was amended, but I'm just saying, those are the things that keep getting said to me. So it doesn't line up. So right now, there's an appeal of the decision, which means if that's successful, there would be no vegetative management plan or revegetation plan with the ZBA, to do that. Otherwise, they'll go through the appeal, lose the appeal, and they'll have to do the vegetation plan with the ZBA, and this place will just continue to sit here until that's done. So, or they can proceed with actually complying with the notice of violation and start working on a plan instead of appealing the decision or arguing the fact.
We are working on a plan.
All right. That's great.
The buffer zone is gone.
I
It's
know.
not wiped out. For
Yes.
better or for worse, it's gone.
For worse.
We need to move forward and correct that. And that's what we are doing.
If I could just say that one of the problems and one of the reasons that the buffer zone was clear cut this year was because the woody species were getting out of control. If you look at some of the trees that are just left there right now, they are virtually close to penetrating protected airspace. And if the theory was, and I'm not vouching for it, but if they didn't cut those species, there were a lot of woody species, black cherry, several other different species in there that were woody species that were growing and that were going to penetrate the protected airspace. That's why it was cut. We're trying to establish a new buffer zone that will be acceptable and incorporated into the new, the VMP when it changes in 5 years, when we adjust it, that will reflect the agreement with the ZBA on this new site plan. We're not avoiding a site plan, we're trying to come up with one that the ZBA approves and that we can incorporate into the VMP update in 2 years. That's the objective that we're trying to do. In the meantime, however, we want to take out those trees, and there's like 2 or 3 in the middle of the buffer zone, and then there's the ones that are along the fence line that are virtually, they're 15, 20 feet high along the fence line, and that's even higher than what that hemlock was supposed to be allowed to grow. We want to cut those down, and from now on, make sure that that area is properly managed so that no woody species that have the potential to grow higher than the allowable airspace protection grow. If there are species that come in that are natural species that don't have the potential to grow into protected airspace, we'll leave them there. But that's what the criteria has to be, and we also want to make sure that the species that come in, the natural species that come in, or that we plant, are not attractive to wildlife, birds in particular, because that's a safety issue, and we're trying to avoid that. We're trying to come up with a comprehensive plan that deals with all of these issues, and what we're trying to do by the time we get back to the ZBA is have something that we can all agree on that can be incorporated into the BMP 2 years down the road and that can be maintained. And so we're trying to do the same thing, Andrew, I believe. Honest to God, I think we are. And I'm not excusing, the reason the reason it's being overlooked is that the reason that was clear cut is because those woody species that were in there that were growing natural, the natural species, consisted of species that were going to grow into protected airspace, so they had to be cut. The new management plan will avoid that. We will be hand cutting those species so that they never get to that point.
Corey would like to say something.
Oh, I'm a little confused, like, is Mr. Finn talking on behalf of the Conservation Commission or on behalf of the airport?
Mr. Finn.
I'm the liaison
He's
between
the
the
liaison.
Conservation Commission and the airport.
He's hired as a consultant to the airport for the Conservation Commission.
I did not do the VMP, but the airport's consultant, ASG, which is their engineering consultant, hired a firm that did the VMP. We oversaw that effort. Bill Grafton, when he was here as the conservation agent or administrator, he demanded or required a new VMP to be developed because of the Marsh Master acquisition and the change in management. And so that got paid for by Mass DOT to the tune of $85,000. And the unfortunate part is that it did not incorporate the buffer zone site plan approval that that was agreed to in 2014. The new approach to this will be that site plan will be incorporated into the BMP. But because the BMP right now says you're supposed to, they're required to clear cut that area with the marsh master on a yearly basis. And it doesn't account for the buffer zone. Then when we revise it, we come up with this new site plan and we get it with agreement with the ZBA, we will incorporate the site plan and that will change the BMP. So it will take out heavy mowing in that buffer zone. And it will require hand cutting of woody vegetation that has the potential to grow to the height where it would potentially violate protected airspace.
Andrew?
Just real quick, two quick things. The COVID argument, I don't understand, because this 5-year VMP was from 2027 or 2022 to 2027, so it's a couple of years removed. And I think it maybe got pushed back to 2023, which was the 1 year that things didn't happen the right way or something like that because of COVID or something. But we're 4 years where there's been no restrictions, there's been nothing stopping them from doing anything, if that was really the case of maintaining it. Like, so there's that. But honestly, at this point, I just the one thing I want identified, because Bill keeps saying that they want to cut, they want to cut, they want to cut, they want to cut. So what I want to make certain is that we understand is that they have a notice of violation not to cut anything right now, unless you guys certify it in your emergency certification that it has to get cut. So it's important for you to identify in your emergency certification what they can and can't do, whether it's just restricted to providing access to the gate, or if they can go and selectively cut these potential future annotations to airspace, and if that's an emergency worth approving tonight. So thank you. Hated Bliss.
So, our
Chair Hannafin.
Yep.
I had another comment from Mary Murphy. I would encourage you, Mary, if you have any more comments, to raise your hand, and then, or I see you just unmute yourself. Would you like to ask these questions yourself?
Sure, if you don't mind, and I'm sorry. So my name is Mary Murphy, 252 Ocean Street. So just a couple of questions that I had, only because I walk by that area. And I was just curious, like when you guys were looking at this and it's like an emergency, right? And it's protected airspace. Does that 12 feet, is that a part, or is that depicted as part of that protected airspace? Is that how that's defined?
The protected airspace is diagrammed.
No, I don't mean the actual physical spot. I'm just saying like the height requirement, because you kept saying like the vegetation can't be higher than 12 or 15 feet. And so I'm just curious, like, what are the odds that a plane is coming in that low? Because Webster Street, like people drive up and down that street all the time. I'm just curious.
The 12 to 15 feet, we're talking about screening the fence. 12 to 15 feet is not penetration of the airspace.
Oh, I thought the trees couldn't be higher than 12 or 15 feet.
No. The trees can't be higher than 27 feet.
Oh, 27 feet.
No, that's at Plymouth Avenue, though. That's at the edge of Plymouth Avenue.
Right.
If I could, there are, the space that is protected is the space above, at the edge of Plymouth Avenue, anything above 31 feet. So you can have a tree, let's just use a tree as an example, grow to a height of 31 feet, and it won't penetrate the protected airspace along Plymouth Avenue. However, regulations say that you should cut the trees this tree, this hypothetical tree, when it reaches 27 feet, because it's 5 feet away, it's a potential penetration, and it's a potential penetration. You can cut the tree, you should cut the tree when it's 5 feet away from being a penetration.
Got it,
So if
okay.
you can guarantee that the tree won't grow, if it's 31 feet now, and you guarantee it won't grow another foot, then you should cut it at 27 feet.
Okay.
So that dimension is at like 15 feet at the fence, not at Plymouth Avenue.
Okay, so we won't actually have like planes touching cars or something, like, that's not conceivable. I was just curious, like, from a project managing perspective, like, this is classified as an emergency, right? What are the odds of like a plane actually coming over that area within the next year? If this thing hasn't been touched in what, 12, 14, or whatever, however many years, how would we classify this as an emergency based upon the statistics or the percentage of planes that might actually hit that spot?
This is being treated as an emergency to try to finish the job that we started, that was stopped when ZBA issued a violation. That's all we're trying to do. Get the area clear so we can move forward.
But I thought that the order was old and it hasn't been followed in subsequent years, and that now you went to the ZBA, and I thought that the order was then stopped and then activity happened. So I'm just trying to understand, I guess. I'm sorry. I have so many questions.
The mowing took place. That's history. The buffer zone was largely taken out. We're trying to restore it. We were continuing the cleanup by taking out brush and scrub and everything that got smashed down. And then the violation was issued, and we had to stop work. We just want to finish the job we started so that we can move forward. And
But it was based, the motion to move forward, my understanding was based upon safety. That's the reason why I went back to the
The only way we
statistics,
can get an emergency certification is for health and safety reasons. Town council suggested an emergency certification, and clearly the only thing we can base this on is safety. We've got to get that area under control so that gate is fully accessible to emergency vehicles. We're just using the mechanism to move forward.
The other concern that is not being discussed very much is the problem associated with, we have either existing violations or potential violations of our grant agreements with both the FAA and the state. And that's the reason that we would like, when Andrew says, I want to cut, I want to specifically cut specific trees that are potentially violating our grant agreements right now. And we certainly can identify those. That's not hard to do.
Can we just?
That makes sense.
If
That makes perfect sense.
If, it seemed, I understand what Bill's saying, the VMP probably should identify that. Can we just, if we're gonna issue an emergency certificate, identify trees that are within 15 to 27 feet within that 50-foot buffer that would be clear cut? Like, I don't.
How is the emergency certification language written?
We don't need to keep going back and forth. Clearly, the VMP
Yeah, I
needs
want to
be
wrap this
revised.
up.
The site plan needs to be revised. I think the VMP realistically, based on what I read in the VMP, this is allowed, which I get what building commissioner is saying, it's a zoning violation. So like, having something that contradicts the zoning like the zoning ordinance, is a weird thing for us to have approved that they can yearly do. And it clearly hasn't taken place in 12 years or whatever, but under our agreement, like, they're allowed to do that in direct violation of the zoning ordinance. So I think there needs to be
We need to
some-
get them aligned.
Yeah, it needs to be aligned.
Right, and that's
And I understand the safety issue,
direction
yeah.
we're trying to move in.
Right, so I think the emergency certificate of just cutting those specific trees is probably a valid thing, and then resolving the rest later. Obviously, we can't fix the buffer right now.
As I've listened to this for about an hour, I'm of the same mind, is that, there's a safety issue with gate access. So I don't know how any of this, I haven't been out there unfortunately, how any of this cutting has improved or not improved gate access, but it seemed like gate access is a priority.
It is.
The other thing, that I'm hearing is the height of tree safety issue. All right? So why can't, and then there's this other issue related to this, which is trees attracting birds or trees attracting wildlife. That could be an air safety issue.
That would be
So-
going forward, yeah.
So, and then we seem or don't seem to have a valid vegetation management plan, the current vegetation management plan. So I'm sitting
We
here
do
saying.
have a valid vegetation management plan. We
Agreed
don't
upon?
have, oh, yeah.
But it's been obsolete. I mean,
It's been obsolete, and also is a direct violation of.
Okay, but it hasn't been followed, I guess, maybe.
It hasn't been followed outside of
All right, so
the
now.
fence, yeah.
And it's a direct violation of the buffering.
Right.
So that's like where.
That's where we have to
So why can't we-
reconcile.
So can't we just
Yeah.
deal with each of these individuals, instead of, and then I'm seeing words like cutting and cleanup. So in my mind, cleanup is you've already done cutting, so we're gonna clean up the brush that we cut, as opposed to continue cutting. And I think these two words
Well-
are used interchangeably.
When the marsh master went through, it cut everything, it left all this debris, which we want to move out of there.
So is it-
Did
can I
not
just
cut
ask-
some of the trees that are potentially going to penetrate the airspace, which still need to be cut.
So Andrew, were you okay with cleanup, but no more cutting?
Yes, that's what.
I thought I heard you say that here, that it's okay to go in and.
We were fine with them cleaning up whatever has already been cut. We would ask that any, trees be left alone as is right now, that you go through the process of identifying them and selectively cutting them instead of just going forward now without a resolved zoning issue. That's why even in Mass General Law and in 310 CMR, it says to obtain or try to obtain all required zoning permits and approvals, right? So that's, again.
So in gate access has come up again as well. Is there, in your mind, is there an issue with gate access right now?
Yeah, there is, yeah. There's vines all over the fence and all over the gate that have been left there.
And
If you want to get safe access to that emergency gate and the field beyond, the vines need to be cleared off of the gate. And the brush that's been cut needs to be removed. But beyond that, you have access to the gate. Once the brush is removed, you have access to the gate.
Okay.
There's a 30-foot tall poplar right in front of the gate access that needs to be cut.
Okay,
And we
so-
would like to cut it while we have the tree contractor out there this week.
Okay, but that will be
Selective cutting.
selective cutting to have.
But Andrew
access to
has
the gate.
stipulated no cutting.
No, he just said if you want to reach the gate, then you can cut whatever you need to cut to reach the gate.
That's what we want to do, that selective cutting of how many trees, Bill? 3, maybe 4?
I think there are three trees, and then there's a group of saplings that are probably 15, 20 feet tall that are along the, and there's one small, crazy pine tree that are growing right along the fence line. That should be cut because that fence line has a height restriction of about 12 to 15 feet. So anything over 15 feet, or the potential to go over
those
15 feet.
trees. Let's just cut the one that needs to be, okay.
Go ahead, Cory.
Cut the one that needs to be cut to create access for the gate, and whatever else needs to be cut in the future, go through whatever zoning process needs to happen in order for this to be
So, Mike, can you bring up the most recent near map, the April 10th one?
Sure.
I really want to move forward here.
I know.
and Wrap this up.
I just want to show you, like, if you look at where the gate, can you zoom in to where the gate is? So the gate's to the left right there. You see you can almost see that's right where the gate is. So you have clear access through, there's no tree in front of that. There's no trees in front of that.
There's a tree.
I think as you go up,
Um,
I think the tree that
It's
I'm
close,
talking
it's close to the road.
about, it's out. There's the gate.
Are these, just spatially?
There it is, it's right there.
That's it there.
That tree right there.
Here's the road.
You have a telephone pole.
I know, I saw the pole, yeah.
Just spatially, Bill and Craig, I've driven this road, I drove it soon after it was clear cut, and from a height perspective, how tall are the telephone poles? 30-plus feet?
About,
So,
yeah.
Bill, you're saying that this tree is taller than the telephone pole?
It is virtually, yeah, right now.
It is as tall as the telephone pole and possibly taller.
Okay. I mean, I mean, that one tree, if you think that is penetrating the airspace or within a foot of it, like, we can stipulate the certificate to cut that one tree. I mean, at that point, that's a single tree on a clear-cut area. It's probably gonna be replaced anyway, at this point. Like, if that's the sticking point of the airport commission, that they feel the need that is gonna lose grant money at this point, and it hasn't been an issue for the past 12 years, but today it is. I mean, that area needs a restoration pretty significantly, so, at this point, I don't see saving vegetation as really being anything we are too concerned with, but I mean, that one tree, I'd be fine with cutting and getting the fence, kind of the vines off the fence and stuff. I think we gotta move forward here, so.
Yeah.
Let's just,
I'd like to ask the commission to ratify the emergency certification, to clean up the debris, which is mostly all done by hand, and cut specific trees that are exceeding the height requirement for the space they're in.
I don't think I would support that. I would just support removing the one tree that's blocking access to the gate, so that the rest of the trees would remain until whatever process needs to happen for zoning happens.
Would you
I'm
read
not-
the language in the emergency certification, Mike?
Yes, let me pull that up.
And we have to also clear the gate, so that's also, so clean up what's the debris, clean up the gate, so you have unfettered access via the gate. Those are the two priorities in my mind right now. And then we all have to be on the same
And
page.
yeah, clean up the debris so that we can get the space under control, get the vegetation under control. Because if all that muck
Would
is,
everything be just chipped and
yes,
spread in place?
it's gonna be chipped, and a lot of the chips, and anything suitable for chipping is gonna be put in front of the gate, which is a very wet spot.
I mean, there's realistically gonna have to be some, with whatever site plan or revisions that happen, there's probably gonna have to be clearing in, right, to get the invasives out and then replant it? Like, is that what the end goal
I think
is?
there needs to be like a restoration plan to correct the violations of
Well, we're trying to just
the
get
zoning buffer.
back to first base here.
Right.
And see what revegetates naturally. Can we seed cattails in? You know, can we put a shrub buffer along the road? There's there's several possibilities, but we just want to get this cleared up, and then when we meet later this month with the state agencies, we can discuss the best way forward.
Bill, I have a question for you before Mike reads the emergency. If the airport had an invalid vegetation maintenance plan, would that be something that would put them out of grant money or funding or something of that sort?
Well, let me clarify, that vegetation management plan is not invalid by any stretch of the imagination.
I didn't say that, Bill, I just was curious, because I'm
If
also.
they did, yes, the answer to your question is yes, they would,
Because I think what we would need, like, if this is valid till 2027, what's stopping the airport? We go through all this year, this summer. Andrew's appeal gets, or violation, everything's resolved, they submit a site plan, and then next summer they come in and just do the same exact thing because it's part of the vegetation maintenance plan? Like, technically, they would still have the.
Go ahead,
But
Bill.
in the vegetation maintenance plan, it says they can't.
Rough mowing once a year, yeah.
Like, that's the, so.
that buffer zone will not be mowed again.
I mean, Bill, I hope that's true.
The point is that we can stipulate that when we go in for site plan approval with the ZBA.
Maybe it makes sense to have a revised
That
VMP.
stipulation, that can be a stipulation that's made with the ZBA that the site plan will control that buffer zone until the update of the VMP takes place at the end in 2 years. Once that, and so the stipulation in the site plan approval with ZBA is that there be no machine cutting in this buffer zone.
For the next 2 years.
The only cutting that could occur would be woody vegetation, and that's it. You can't bring that marsh master in there again.
Gotcha, okay, thanks.
So that stipulation could be made with the ZBA site plan approval and then rolled into
the next
the
VMP.
buffer zone addition when we incorporate this buffer zone into the updated VMP in 2 years.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say that that was a stipulation of the existing site plan approval, that no mechanical equipment would be used to mow that area. That's part of the existing site plan approval, that no mechanical equipment was going into there. That's why there's a violation, because mechanical equipment was used in that specific 35-foot buffer zone beyond the fence.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, in a year and a half, if none of us are on the commission and Andrew's not the building commissioner and Bill's not the liaison anymore, like, I don't want someone to look at this VMP and be like, oh, and we're back to where we are today. We have a zoning violation, they followed the VMP that was approved, and then it's the same issue. Just needs to all be aligned.
Would you read the language?
Yes. So section 6, under work to be allowed under emergency cert, it reads, this emergency certification authorizes the vegetation cleanup along Plymouth Avenue and cannot wait as there will be further damage to the area. This work will be the minimum necessary to abate the emergency.
And cleanup means just clearing already cut
Well,
vegetation.
we have one tree that needs attention.
The one that impedes gate access.
Yes.
So I guess, could we just be a little more specific in that language? I mean, we're voting on something that we haven't even read. I mean, you read it to us. So, like I said, I'm seeing language cleanup and cutting, and it almost seems like it's interchangeable. So I think, I don't know, I think the sentiment was no more cutting, except for maybe one tree that blocked access to the gate, and just cleanup.
Yeah, that makes, sense to me, but I mean, I know you want to jump in, Bill, but it's almost 9:30 and we've been talking about this for an hour and a half.
For too long.
Could have cut the trees by now.
Yeah.
Even could have cut.
Just the use of the word cutting, you have to, some of that stuff that's down, that's laying on the ground, it's old stuff, it has to be cut
Okay.
with a chainsaw. So if you say no cutting of live vegetation, no cutting of live vegetation, that's fine.
That's what I meant. Thank you.
Okay. So, no cutting of live vegetation. We will continue the cleanup
Access, they provide access, clean up the gate,
and make sure there is safe access to the gate.
which you may have to cut live vegetation.
Well, there may be one living thing that maybe have to be cut there, but,
All right.
all right,
I'm fine with that.
is everybody
I
comfortable?
just want to be absolutely clear to capture the language on the emergency cert. So we're authorizing to allow access to the emergency roadway and the cutting to facilitate that. No cutting of any live trees.
Yes.
Vegetation. I think trees might be a better
Yeah, because I
noun for
think
that.
Andrew even identified the vines on the fence or.
Right, the vines need to be cleared off.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, I then move to ratify an emergency certification requested by the Town of Marshfield Airport Commission to the Conservation Commission to clean debris and no cutting of live trees. That's not very articulate, but I'm tired.
Well, we agree with those words. You can clean up the language.
Okay, I move that we ratify the emergency certification based on those criteria. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all
Okay.
very much. Please
Thank
give
you.
Annie whatever she wants.
I know, I feel bad for these, I didn't see these people
I
sitting
know,
over here.
I saw them. I feel
so bad for
terrible.
you.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I thought this was it.
Okay, Constellation, are you from Constellation Road? Yes.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Too bad.
Forgive us, bad agenda for you.
I'm giving you a heads up.
Okay, you have a couple of changes to your landscaping there. Mike, do you want to explain?
Yeah, so I got a call and a complaint from a neighbor who said that they were doing work outside of the approved work boundaries on site. They were installing this gravel type parking drive area on the side of the I'm once again not sharing the proper screen. So yeah, on this side here, they wanted to put in a gravel area. I got a call from a neighbor and a complaint from the neighbor saying that they were doing work outside the approved work boundaries. I went out on site. It was revealed that they had a lot of other changes to the approved site plan planned for the property. So I figured coming in front of the commission would be the best route, and they're requesting to capture these changes on the as-built site plan.
Okay, can you explain the changes to us?
Yes, my name's Bob Morell. I'm doing coordinating the work for Annie, so I'll just kind of address this on her behalf. First of all, like I told Mike, we apologize for this. We didn't really realize that, we had the order of conditions for the patio and the deck, but we didn't really realize that it also included any kind of lawns or anything like that. So to get things squared away, I submitted all this paperwork that truly shows everything that's going to be done, not only now, but also in November when the deck itself goes in. So basically, Annie's trying to make the house relatively maintenance-free. She took out all the lawns, basically a couple of inches of, lawn and dirt, replaced it with a white crushed stone where the red hash marks are. That's done now. In the back of the house, in the backyard, you see the patio, that's already been addressed with conservation. That yellow is going to be 1-inch river stone, okay? And then behind the yellow, all through the backyard, is going to be that landscaping. And there is a plant list on one of those plans. It's some eastern red cedars, some rose rugosa, some hydrangeas, some different ornamental grasses, all relatively maintenance-free things.
So you're essentially taking what was...
Very rough-looking lawn.
It was lawn,
Yes.
okay, and you're putting down stone.
Putting down stone and...
And then the landscaping
And then one area
behind
is
it.
mulched, yeah.
Right.
Yep. And what I would propose, again, I didn't realize this should have been in the original notice of intent. Shame on me. It said no reflection on McKenzie Engineering. I never told him about it either. So that's why he didn't show it. What I'd like to do is just show this on the as-built that we do in November, because that deck can't be built until November anyway.
Okay.
So when we do the deck in November, we'll have McKenzie come out, certify everything, update the as-built, and then submit it with our certificate of completion.
Okay.
So that's the hope.
Does anyone have any objections to this? I mean, the biggest change is really the river stone.
Yeah.
And then the
white stone.
The white stone on the side, everything's,
None of it's really changed on the grade, right?
Oh, no grade changes whatsoever.
All permeable.
it's all permeable.
Everything's permeable, the patio's permeable.
Yeah.
I have no issues.
I think it's an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually does look really nice, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The lawns were pretty rough looking. So it does look nice, the white stone.
Yeah, I like your plants, too. Okay, I move that we approve the landscape changes to 24 Constellation Road to be depicted on the as-built. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, you got
No.
stuck on the
I feel bad for
end.
you guys. You
know.
should listen a little too often.
No, we felt bad for you, tell you.
Thank you. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry
And
about
we
that.
have, thank you, we have one COC which we need to table because the site is not stabilized. That is SE 42, 31, 34, 26 Meadow Lane. I move to table. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our business. I move to close the Town of Marshfield Conservation Commission for June 3rd, 2026. A second, please. All in favor? Aye.
Opposed.
We are
I want
adjourned.
to keep going.